Hello, 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 and welcome back. Welcome back to a new episode of Inspiration Ballet. And for a matter of fact, this is the fifth episode. So, fifth time we see each other here in this new format that tries to bring you some inspiration, give you some ideas, and tell you about people, stories about people, and their careers. So here today we're back. We're back with a new guest, and our guest for today is Enza.
Ciao,
Welcome, Enza.
come
How are
stai?
you?
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Me and
Excellent.
Enza, we met like a couple of years, a couple of hours ago. Sorry, not years. And we've been speaking on the phone. She's a great person. She
Oh,
was
thank
telling me
you.
about her story, her personal story, and career story as well. And it's what you've done. It's fantastic. But
Thank
just
you.
tell us who you are and why are you here.
Um, well, okay. My name is Enza.
Really briefly, obviously.
Exactly. And I moved to the United States from Rome, Italy, in 1991. So it's been quite a bit. I don't even know if you were around on the planet back then, but anyhow, you look so young. So there are lots of different ways of telling the story, but in a nutshell, I followed my dreams, and I didn't escape a family situation that I didn't like. I just had everything I needed here: a house, a family, and a job, but it wasn't really what I wanted to do. And so I said, let's try and go overseas to study film, and see if I can do something about it.
Why did you decide to go in the US? Like, why the US and not something a little bit closer to Italy and your hometown?
That's a very good question. So I had friends from Los Angeles, and when I mentioned my desire of studying film, they all told me, "You got to be in Hollywood. I mean, that's where the movie making machine was born and still exists over 100 years later. So you should try and study there and see if you can create a network and start creating some projects." So I had many stories. I mean, I always been fascinated by photography and film and theater, and since I was a little kid, I was part of my theater parish group, and I wasn't camera shy. I'm more shy now than then, but I truly enjoy the arts in general, primarily filmmaking, because I think it's a complete language. It's a way of telling stories with mm, characters and music and cinematography. It's very complete. It's a very complete, sophisticated art form that encapsulates so many art forms. So, but I guess the aspect of the story that you might be interested in, Rinascita Digitale, is when I literally bumped into Apple. But I don't know if I should jump into that chapter or if you want to know a little
I
bit.
will I would like to stay on the filmmaking chapter. So what did get you passionate about, like, how did it happen? How did you discover filmmaking? And
Well, as a young girl in Italy, I grew up, as many other, child my age and my generation, with black and white silent movies like Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, and I fell in love with Chaplin's lifestyle and also the way he was telling his stories, like Modern Times, and how he was emphasizing the importance of being unique at the same time, in in a background of trying to express your soul, even though your soul might be trapped in a machinery and you might end up being on the gear of this big machine. So I love filmmaking because of silent movies to begin with. And that's when, my dad actually gave me his first Super 8 camera as well as his photo camera. And I started taking lots of photos in Rome and in other parts of Italy. I didn't shoot a lot of film in Italy because it was so expensive to develop. And, I was more fascinated about theater back then. I started to shoot film when I moved to California. So around 1992, 1993, when I took quite a few classes through some of the schools that I attended, from UCLA to UC Berkeley, as well as City College of San Francisco, where I signed up to a film school. I don't know if you knew about it, but City College of San Francisco is where also Robin Williams studied. Another one of my inspirational source. It was such a great actor and comedian and filmmaker as well. So, but that's what I, started to shoot actually in Super 8 as well as in 16 millimeter short stories. One of them was called Born in the USA, and it was capturing some moments of daily life in downtown San Francisco, which is eventually the city where I decided to stay permanently after going back and forth between Los Angeles and San Francisco. Um, and that's
So
that's pretty.
basically, you were a 12 years old girl with a dream in your mind. Um,
Oh, this was back
how,
in Rome when I was 12.
Back in Rome. No, yeah, obviously not in San Francisco. And
Yeah.
how did it go? How did it happen? How did you end up working in Apple and meeting Steve Jobs and doing everything you did?
Yes,
Was it
yes.
a clear path, or what
So
are
what
the
happened?
main problems you encountered?
Yeah, so what happened is that when I was 12, my dad asked me this specific question, you're about to finish your middle school. What would you like to do? I said, Dad, I love theater. I love film. I would like to go to the Academy of Arts. And he actually drove me there. So we went, and he said, go in and ask some information about how to sign up, what you have to do, and so on. And I think he already partially knew about it uh, because it's a very tight circle, if you want. It's, there's a lot of nepotism, and it's very expensive. It's a private institute. And so I went in and I spoke to the receptionist, the person behind the desk, and again, I asked the man, what do I have to do in order to sign up? And the guy basically turned around this big leather book, and he started to flip pages, and he put his index finger in the area where the last names were. And he said, what do you notice here, Enza? And I kept reading Lauren, Mastroianni, Mastroianni, Mastroianni. It was like, ah, okay. So, I was only 12, but I quite, I got pretty fast the concept of being already in a certain circle, if you want. And that's exactly what the man at the reception desk told me. I said, look, you need to not only afford this school because it's private, but you need to have certain connections. So I said, okay, that's fine, let's move on then. So I continued to have this conversation with both my mom and my dad and said, look, I like to travel. I would like to study something that will allow me to travel. And I think foreign language is one way to do it. So I started to research institutes and schools in Rome that I could attend. And one of them was um, an institute for foreign language as well as tourism and business. And that's what I signed up for and studied for 5 years there. Became a tour operator as well as a simultaneous translator, and that helped me quite a bit. I studied German, French, and of course English, um, and definitely that helped me when I was going through job interviews. One of the jobs I landed in Rome was for a student exchange agency. And that also helped me a little bit to understand what it meant to move abroad, not only studying, but working au pair, and gather enough information and a little bit of courage to do the big move. But it didn't happen until a few years later, because I landed a job also for a pretty large company called Litton Guidance and Control System. They produce inertial, they design and build inertial systems, and they had a branch right outside of Rome in Pomezia, and eventually they were purchased by Northrop, if I'm not wrong. But I don't want to get into that chapter of my life because it wasn't the job I wanted to do, right? So it was just being an administrative assistant or secretary, if you want, to
It's
the VP of engineering. And I was I was typing big manuals, like hundreds of pages of manuals of these systems in English on computers that were the size of this room, using Unix. And just to have like a title, in bold, I had to write codes at the beginning and at the end of that title. So enough. I think it's a boring chapter anyway.
It's really fun because I can see a lot of touch points between your story and what I did and I'm doing in my personal life and history.
Oh,
I've started like
wonderful.
creating contents online through photography at first and then videography. So like starting making videos and photos like from scratch with what I had. I bought a small camera, a small GoPro camera, and I started like, I don't know, filming things that I was doing and places I was traveling to and so on. And one of my first jobs was actually for exchange student company.
Really? Oh, that's
So
cool.
I had the opportunity with them to travel a little bit and discover new things and do like uh, gather new opportunities and do stuff and everything else. Like all of these brought me to where I am right now. So right now I'm studying business actually in Scotland, so in English. So yeah, a lot of touch points and things that are
That's very
connected.
interesting. Yeah. And so
But
that's why Inspiration Valley came to life, right? That's my understanding.
yeah, it's yeah. And the basic idea is offering touch points to people listening to us right now and be like, okay, you can do things as well as long as you've got a clear objective of what you want to do and you follow your dreams and what you like and what you want to do and what you would like to do
Yeah.
and everything at one point gets on the right way and you start picking up what you've been seminare. I don't know how
Um,
to say that in English.
well, you can. I would assume you want to
Raccogli ciò che
put a
semini.
seed, like you want to put a seed, or you want to cultivate something. You want to grow something. Yeah, I
Yeah.
totally hear you. And to answer to your question again, the long story short, well, I don't know how short it's gonna be, but anyhow, um, after I spent a few years down in LA working on the set of various films and documentaries and producing my own, I moved back to the Bay Area and I was trying to get a hold of some dear friends of mine, Italian friends who were chefs, because one of the projects that I wanted to develop had to do with Italian cuisine, the simplicity of Italian cuisine, especially after observing for a few years the way students were eating in cafeterias and um, even more so in the Silicon Valley, where, let's say, eating was more of a nuisance between a coding and meetings, and everybody's so geared to get to the next innovation, and there's very little time for appreciating what we eat. So I reconnected with
Yeah,
these friends of
especially
mine.
like in Italy. In Italy,
Yeah,
we've got like
yeah,
a special culture towards food, but in
yes,
any
yeah.
other country, if you're a workaholic or something like that,
Workaholic. Yes.
workaholic,
Workaholic.
yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Uh, Sometimes you spend your whole day on the computer or doing your things and you forget about eating. And when
Yes.
you actually realize that you didn't have lunch or you didn't have dinner and it's like
Yes.
12, you're
Well,
like,
it's
okay,
12
I'm gonna
noon.
put things in the oven,
Yes.
let
Yes.
them cook. And then at one point, we realize that I'm very hungry, that I want those.
Yes, absolutely. So anyhow, so that was the idea, trying to put together a documentary about how easy it is to put together something very basic and healthy, avoiding fast food, right? So I reconnected with these friends of mine, Francesco Longoni and Luigi Passalacqua, and unfortunately I didn't find them where they used to work at the Il Fornaio restaurant in the city. They moved on, and they wouldn't give me any contact information for privacy reasons, so I left mine and I said, look, if you come across to them, or if you can talk to them and let them know that I'm looking for them, I would love to reconnect, because I was gone for at least 3 years from the Bay Area. So It's very easy, by the way, and that's one point that I wanted to make. It's very easy to break all those networks that you created if you keep on moving. So it's challenging. You take a chance, but you have to do what you have to do. So my choice was not to continue pursuing masters and PhD in filmmaking, but rather work on the set and learn the lingo of whatever happens on the set for real, not in the books. And believe me, they're two different universes. What you study on the book is very important, but what happens on the set, it's something completely different, especially on a large production scale. So
There's
and I'm
a specific human factor, I think.
sorry.
In every job you do and everything you do, there is a
Yes.
specific human factor that gets involved.
Yes.
You actually start like realizing that you work with people, and it's
Yes.
not all about theory and all about the things that you know and the knowledge you've built. Is
Yes.
a lot about relationships
Mm-hmm.
and relating to others and learning how to cooperate and work in a team or leading a team on and so on. So
Yes,
yeah,
and
yeah.
hands-on. I call it hands-on, and that's what I liked about, especially City College of San Francisco. My first choice was State University in San Francisco, but they had a close number of students in film school, and I had to wait for another semester, and I didn't want to waste any time, so I did my research. Found out that the same professors that were teaching at the film school in State were also teaching at City College of San Francisco, and I decided to pursue that school because I didn't have to wait. And again, I like the fact that Robin Williams studied there. So, well, Harvard is not Yale, but who cares? As long as we have good professors, good books, and a lab that will allow us to use editing systems and cameras, and the support of a department that back then was pretty good. So, where was I? So yes, carpe diem, seize the day. So I decided to spend that amount of time after studying at City College in Los Angeles, and then from Los Angeles, after 3 years or so, I moved back to the Bay Area, contacted my friends. Eventually, they got back to me, and Luigi said, "Why don't you come over and visit us? Just go on 280 South and look for those white buildings with a rainbow apple logo on the front, and come see us." So I again took my courage again, because I didn't feel adequate. I said, I don't know much about computers. I'm not a computer scientist, and where the heck am I going? And the only thing, though, I kept thinking is that that logo is the same logo that is on my laptop that I use on a daily basis for my chores. So I decided to go. I met with Luigi. Luigi explained to me that upon Steve Jobs' invite, they went to Apple, and shortly after, Steve rejoined Apple from Next, and they rebuilt entirely the cafeteria from scratch, transforming it into like a five-star, restaurant, literally, and they called it Cafe Mac. So in Cafe Mac, you could eat anything from delicious Italian food to sushi, to Singapore style spicy Chinese food, anything you wanted, 3 meals a day for all the Apple employees in the then headquarters of Infinite Loop in Cupertino, Silicon Valley, California, and eventually today for Apple Park, the new headquarters, also in Cupertino. So, and so Luigi basically told me, yes, we'll give you a hand to do the documentary, but come and help us because we're getting so busy. I mean, we went from a few hundred people tasting our food to now thousands, coming also from the neighboring buildings and from other companies, because our employees are bringing also guests. So it's busy, So I jumped in and I said, yes, I can do this. I mean, I'm not a teenager anymore. But hey, if I can help, I'll help, and I'll learn more. So they offered me a vendor position. I jumped in. I worked as back then again, the team was so small that we literally all jumped in different positions at the same time every day, from cashier to espresso barista, to restocking refrigerators, making sure that the salad bar was okay, the sandwich bar was okay. And the good thing about Cafe Mac is that it's one of those places. And by the way, the original Cafe Mac is still there at Italy Loop. And
Have you ever went back?
sorry.
Have you ever gone back,
Oh yeah,
like
of course. Yeah, yeah,
recently?
yeah. Oh yeah,
Like
yeah. I was
having
there.
a meal there just to remember the old times.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Has it changed since then, or is it
Oh yeah,
still kind of the
they
same?
redesigned. Of course, they redesigned to accommodate the ever-growing number of employees that Apple has now hired. And but the location is the same. There are lots of memories there, good memories.
Are your
Um,
two friends still there?
yes, of course, yes, yes, yeah. So, but yeah, that's how I started, and so I met many people. So Cafe Mac was a place where Steve used to go have his lunch very often, as well as all his teams of developers, and so that was the beauty of being in that place at that time. Meeting various people. Excuse me. I
No
just
worries.
developed a really bad cold, and I apologize if I'm gonna lose my voice in the process.
No worries. We love seeing your Apple mag.
Yes,
So
yes.
as I
At the company store many years ago. The company store is no longer, but as you may know, I mean, there are many um, beautiful Apple stores around the world, that help customers with all their needs. So back to Cafe Mac. So I remember one time, one of the first encounter with Steve. He was at the cafeteria with his young daughter back then. I think she was probably 2 or 3 years old, and um, he was in line to pay, and he gently put his daughter on the scale. Back then, we were weighing, both salads and sandwiches before giving a price. And so I jokingly told him something roughly like, "It's $350 worth of salad, sir." And he smiled and said, "What were you doing?" So, and I said, "Well, I'm here, learning and working with a great team. And so, what do you do?" I said, "I'm a filmmaker." I said, "Oh, okay, another one of those." So yeah, and that's it. That was one of the first encounters. But eventually, later on, in 1999, Steve introduced a wonderful piece of software called iMovie. This was in the October of 1999 at the Enza College Auditorium, and I was working then at Cafe Mac, and I didn't have a chance to see the live keynote, but I was able to sneak into town hall for a few minutes and see the presentation and see how easy through this nonlinear editing software it was to add like a simple transition or a title. And I was like, oh my god, if I had that one a few years ago when I was losing my sight to a little tiny viewer with a splicer and cutting my little tiny Super 8,
it's it's
film.
crazy to think about this because like my
Yeah.
generation, I'm born in 1999. So
Oh
I'm
my god.
born on the same age that
Yes.
in the
Oh,
same
that
year that
happened. Yes.
iMovie was created. But
Yes. Yeah.
like back in the days, having a software on your personal computer that could like edit videos was a crazy idea. Was something that no one did before. Now we're used to like having TikToks and like editing
Absolutely.
everything really quickly with our phone. But
Yes.
back in the days, just if we think 10 years
Yeah.
ago, some things were impossible to think
Yes.
and especially to do. So
Yeah.
like back in the days, I imagine that when you were like when you started making films, you were actually like handling the films and like connecting the
Yes.
films and doing
Absolutely.
the
Yes.
editing
Yes.
was like a
Yes.
proper editing, a physical editing.
Physical editing. So, and that's the good side of coming from film. It helps you have a sense of time and how much material you want to capture and how much time you're budgeting to do your editing. So instead of shooting 147 hours of a cup of tea, you just make a decision in your head and then eventually in a storyboard that will help you minimize the efforts in the editing
And
or
expenses
in
as
post
well because
production. It's
film is expensive.
very expensive to develop film. But yeah, so I mean, I had tears in my eyes when I saw Steve introducing iMovie, and I immediately uh, try to use it on this beautiful blue and white iMac, the one that looks like a bubble, which I still have, by the way. I kept
I
it.
I
And
still have one of those as well.
oh, you
And back in
do?
Italy, yeah, back in Italy, yes, in the office where we manage Rinascita Digitale, we've got a collection of old Macs and
Oh,
products,
nice,
like the
nice.
Newton pad. I don't know if you remember it.
Yes,
Like
yes. Wow.
a lot of pieces that people don't even know that existed.
You can almost we can almost open a museum together. I
Yeah.
also have an Apple II, an Apple One. I have a G3 tower, G5 tower. I don't know. My garage is a mess. So, but yeah, it's tough to part, especially when these machines are still working. Years and years later. So it's impressive, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you were saying Steve
So
Jobs
yeah,
introduced
yeah. So
iMovie?
basically, I immediately picked up on the software. I started to not only buy books but look for courses that would explain to me a little bit more about digital video and audio and editing, because again, film is a completely different beast altogether. But I picked it up quite a bit, and what helped me also back then was volunteering upon invitation of the Italian consulate of San Francisco to produce a weekly Italian cultural program on a local TV station in San Francisco called KTSF, Channel 26. Back then, though, actually wasn't really digital yet. It was more tape to tape editing, 3/4 inch tapes.
Okay.
So it didn't have that much of flexibility, because if you realize that you made a mistake towards the end of the tape, you had to go back and start from scratch. But nevertheless, it was a good experience to work with video, analog back then at the station, because that's what they were broadcasting. And it was also important for me to understand, the timing of TV production. So I'm very grateful for that experience, that chapter of my life. So, but back to Apple. So I started to produce some of these iMovies, which they were used for training purposes as well as for promoting what the Mac was capable of doing, when none of this was really happening around us. And when, if you wanted to edit your own video, you had to rent like an Avid suite for I don't know how many thousands of dollars a day, including the editor. So Steve and his team, I mean, Apple really revolutionized, or let's say that not only they made a revolution, a digital revolution for so many artists that didn't have the opportunity or the financial possibility to create video, but they allow them to do it themselves, without having a background in computer science. So one of these movies that I produced upon a story that I reread that my parents shared, I decided to shoot during the Thanksgiving break of the year 2000. And it was called Swing Dance. And it's basically the story of this elderly couple that are remembering when they were younger, and they were like dancing together. And so I, shot it and cut it in a movie, and put it on a CD, and decided to gift it to Steve for that Christmas. Uh, and I put it in an envelope in a note saying, this is not a blockbuster. It's not a professional video by any means, but it comes from my heart. I hope you like it. And it's a way to say thank you for making this wonderful software. And that's it, And then next thing I know is back then I was in still working as an advertising coordinator in the worldwide marketing communication team at Apple. I found myself at the keynote, and the keynote is the presentation of the new Apple product, software and hardware, at Moscone Center in San Francisco, California. And I was thrilled. That I was, pinch me. I couldn't believe it. And so I was sitting next to Frank Casanova. Frank is still there. Great guy, great musician. And back then he was VP of QuickTime. QuickTime was the backbone of this nonlinear edited software, not only iMovie but also Final Cut Pro. And so at a certain point, Steve starts to introduce this new piece of software called iDVD, which is a software that allows you to author your own DVD. And he starts dragging and dropping various video clips. And one of these, actually two of them, because I completely forgot about one of them, it was the swing dance. And the other one was these film students. And these students put together, some students that I coached, called Gravity, about the theory of gravity. And the keynote is still out there on a YouTube channel. I think I sent you the link. But anyhow, so
Yeah.
I couldn't believe my eyes, and I'm kind of shy when it comes to this part of my life. I rarely talk about it because, I always think about the billions of artists out there that are a million times better than I. And who am I to, sit here and tell this story? But yeah, why not, right? So he basically introduced the video that I made by saying this was done by a very talented Apple employee with iMovie on a Mac, and then he played, quite a few seconds, maybe the first 10, 15 seconds of the video, if not more, just to give an idea of what you can do with this software. And I had tears in my eyes again, and I was like, I can't believe, I wish my parents were here. It's like, oh,
Yeah,
that's it.
you're so basically you made this video for Steve Jobs. You gave it to him as a Christmas present under the Christmas tree, and he opened it, he liked it, and he used it during the presentation of a new software without you knowing, and like as a surprise. I think it was more of a surprise for you than it was for him for Christmas, right? We can hear you. I think
Sorry
you
about
stopped.
that.
Yeah, no
Exactly. It
worries.
was one of the best Christmas gifts ever. I just, I was speechless. And it was like somehow we connected, right? And as I said later on, and maybe you'll be able to read it, I don't know, maybe next year or the following, as I'm writing this book, this, story of my life overseas. Um, it gave me hope that, again, unknown artists from all over the world might have a voice eventually. After the keynote, one of the first person who actually hugged me very tight was my then supervisor, Sissy Twigs, who basically said, Enza, I'm so happy for you. The only thing I wish Steve did, I wish he said your name, because your path, the doors that he could have opened for you, you could be like directing music videos or whatever. And she was having tears in her eyes too. So we were both kind of crying. And I was like, it's fine. I mean, this is something that I wasn't expecting to begin with, and it's so beautiful that it's fine. Everything's good. And eventually, Steve did open a door, the door of his office. He invited me to his office for a job interview, and offered me a job as a video communication specialist in the product marketing team. Um, and he basically asked me to monitor what people were doing with iMovie on the Mac, and to see what they were capable of doing on their own without having an engineering background, without understanding what nonlinear editing is. Because one thing that I learned from Steve is that the simplest is the piece of software, the more elaborated it's in the back. But that should not be a concern of the user. The user should be able to jump in and start using the software without using many manuals or going crazy, trying to figure out how to add a title, for example. And you were talking about TikTok, and TikTok makes me laugh because it's vertical, and I have a tough time accepting vertical videos. But I understand how powerful of a tool it is, because everybody's holding their phone vertically. So here you
To be
go.
fair, Apple did it.
Brilliant. Yes.
Apple started all of this with
Yeah.
their first iPhone. That's
Yes.
where it
Yes.
all started.
Yeah.
vertical, way more vertical year by year
True. That's
screen where
true.
to look at your content, and the
Yeah.
content evolved with the technology that was providing it. So I guess it's a natural evolution,
Hmm.
and so I get your point. It's
Yeah.
nice to see a scene which is like horizontal, because it's like how you actually see things. It's like your field of view, but
Yeah.
at the same time our field of view right now is
It's true. It's very
restricted to
true.
a vertical format. So yeah.
Yeah, you're
And
totally right. Yeah, the only thing is, you know, as a filmmaker, and again, I didn't make any feature films or anything, but I did produce quite a few documentaries on parks in the U.S. as well as here, because the environment and social political issues are of concern to me, and especially global warming. But you find your own language, and you use it the best you can. You share a story that you know, and I think that can get through, um, and can communicate. Maybe can change the life of one person. I don't know. It's
and uh, I with this continuous evolution of the world we live in, and with the continuous evolution of filmmaking and so on, how important and how did you manage to follow up with the changes?
it's a very good question. Um,
For many people, like the filmmaking industry died when Steve Jobs introduced iMovie.
yes, yes. Well, I don't know about that because we're talking about
Yeah,
consumer
yeah, it's like
products,
obviously I'm
right?
like
Yeah, yes,
making
yes.
things.
You're exaggerating the the point, but I see what you're saying. Um, I think video is always evolving. I am learning on a daily basis. I think it's important to keep an open mind and understanding that codecs are as many as the stars in the sky, and they try to improve the quality of video and audio compression, and so there's always going to be the next thing. um, what I try to do is not to lose contact with the storytelling aspect of filmmaking, because it's not only about technology. Again, you can use your iPhone, as you rightly so said, and shoot an entire motion picture with it, and you can actually cut it in iMovie, because eventually Randy and his team moved, actually rewrote a bunch of codes. He accepted our challenge. When I was in the QA team of the video apps, we told him, say, it would be so nice to have this thing on an iPhone or an iPad, but it's impossible. And he was like, who says? Of course it's possible. And again,
It
eventually,
was possible.
yes,
It
we
is.
got him in. Yeah, here it is. This guy here, the little star. I don't know if you can see it, but yeah, I was just, So anyhow, this is it. You can actually do your films in iMovie on a phone, and I think again, it's important that yes, we definitely have to keep up with technology. We need to make our
Lifelong learning.
yes, yes, and decide what's best for us, how we can tell the story, uh, without needing to have a huge crew or like a huge budget, because um, what it really matters is to again preserve the originality of your storytelling, and to tell the story that and and to captivate the audience by telling them, look, this is not something that I'm the only one capable of doing. This is something that has been done for you. This is something that you know you can use every day if you want to, and you don't have to be a rocket scientist to do it either. You just have to be uh, connected to your life experiences, and what made you feel happy, and what makes you feel happy, what is of value to you.
Yeah, I think this is a really good message to follow. Like we were saying it before, having a dream, having something to look at and look forward and try to achieve that specific dream with whatever it takes to do that. You tried to go to film school in art school in Rome, but you couldn't. But you still managed to find a way around it and probably achieve way more than some other people did actually going to art school in Rome. So sometimes it's a matter of wanting things and
Yes.
trying them instead
Yeah.
of like taking the easy path. Sometimes the hard path is the one that makes you grow the most and like makes you gain the most and meet people and do things in the meantime and so on. So if you hadn't accepted the job offer at the cafeteria at the Apple headquarters, you wouldn't have been working for Apple for 20 years. You
Yeah.
wouldn't have met Steve Jobs, one of the greatest mind and and people and entrepreneurs of the last 20, 30 years. So it's a matter of taking opportunities and trying to do things without stopping, I think. If
Yes.
you can confirm, obviously.
Oh, no, no, absolutely. I totally agree with you. It's like not being scared of starting all over again. And believe me, it's hard because you go to a foreign country and they tell you, did you study? Yes. Okay. What did you study? I studied this. Well, we don't recognize it here. Okay. You got to start from scratch. Fine. Let's start from scratch. Then you do everything. And then you move to a different city and they said, did you study this? Yes, I did. Where? Here. Oh, well, but we have a different kind of way of teaching that. So you got to take this course. So it's like a puzzle, right? Or if you want, it's like a chess game and you got to keep on moving and making the right choices for yourself, of course, your family, and and try to be hard-headed too. Perseverance is one of the qualities that I've been told I have to sell. So
I
um,
mean, you sent a present for Christmas to to Steve Jobs. It must take a little bit of courage. Be
yeah,
like,
believe me, I was scared. At the same time, I was so happy. I said, this is the only thing, instead of just saying Merry Christmas, I want to do something for him and his team because they created something that is so beautiful, and it's going to help so many artists around the
when
world.
he invited you to his office, you told me he was either going to fire me or give me a promotion or offer me a job, but you still went in the office and you
Yes.
still went in and took
Yeah.
the chance to actually
Yeah.
get a promotion or change job and change role and make your life better and go towards your dreams.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely didn't say no. I just stay open minded and it was nice. It was a nice encounter. We spoke about everything, Italy and Tuscany. He and his family is big fans of Tuscany and Florence, particularly. They love it, and it was very nice. It's and then I don't know. I think I'll put some other stories in the book that I'm writing.
Did you get the chance to work with him like in the years, or was it
It was
once?
primarily in that chapter of my life when I was working as
Okay.
video communication specialist. That's when we had the most contact because eventually became very very busy. And the other thing I discovered, is that when you move into the engineering land, especially QA, you're in a completely different planet in which you're spending most of your hours in a lab surrounded by many machines and testing, for many hours a day. So that's why, when some people tell me, "Oh, you've been so lucky, Enza, you have no idea." I said, "Yeah, I mean, I guess I was, and I think I found my luck by trying to say yes to whatever I had an opportunity uh, to be offered, And yes, I was concerned about jumping behind the scenes and working on the engineering side of software and finding bugs or defects, right, in a movie and in other software, and it was actually very interesting because you see how the software comes to life, how it transforms itself, it becomes better, and how new features are incorporated to it. So I think he's really been open to learn new, not only new tools, but new ways of achieving the same goals from different perspectives. So
It's nice because you describe the process of making a software and improving the software in a similar way that you described yourself and your willingness to improve and do things better by the time. So you were like, you gotta test, you gotta make errors, you gotta find yourself into errors and bugs and things in order to improve
yeah,
and to get better and to go towards the right path and do things and achieve the point where you're right now. So the version, the V, I don't know, 3.0 or what else.
yes, absolutely.
So it's,
Yeah.
and what about right now? I know that you stopped working for Apple, right?
Yes, yes. So I decided to um, work right now as a consultant primarily, and continue my journey into filmmaking and producing primarily, you know, documentaries as well as uh, films that tells powerful stories. I want to tell powerful stories that, for example, protect the planet. Anything that has to do with global warming. Right now, we are in a pandemic, helping people that are still doubting that there's a pandemic. That there's still possibly no need for a vaccine. I want to help these people because I lost quite a few friends to this doubt. And I don't want to get into politics here, but dear friend of mine, electrical engineer, 68, um, I didn't want to get vaccinated. He got COVID. He was done in 2 weeks. I wish I could have said something. I wish I could have told, a story that might have gotten through him, to change his mind, but anyhow, that's where I'm at.
But
How about
that, that
you?
that's a really nice that's a really nice um, objective though. Like the idea of doing things in order to influence people and make them learn things and discover new things. It's more or less the same thing as we do with Rinascita Digitale, and we try to do with Inspiration Valley as well. The name Inspiration Valley comes from the idea of getting people to watch these live streaming or watch it like on demand and get inspired, get to know things, pick things up, and be able to live a better life. So it's a really powerful idea, and I 100% agree with that. It's a really nice objective, and no other words to describe it.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. And great job, by the way. I like the concept, and I was,
We try our best.
yeah, I was going through some of the other interviews. I was a little bit nervous, starting this one because I didn't know exactly what I could add to all the other speakers you already had. But I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rinascita Digitale actually was created during the first period of the pandemic,
Oh,
and we
wow.
were like in lockdown, 100% lockdown. It just started,
From Edinburgh?
and sorry.
From Edinburgh?
No. I was back in Italy. Well, I didn't start. I took a gap year and
Okay.
started working with my dad, and then the pandemic happened, and we were home doing basically nothing because it was like the first period where nobody knew what to do, and we're
Mhm.
like, okay, we can do something to help people going through these difficult times and actually learn things and get to know new stuff. So we started live streaming with a lot of guests and people that we knew, and this thing took off, and I think we had more than 50,000 people that gathered and subscribed to the platform in order to follow contents. We produced 1,500 hours of video content in live streaming, and you know how much it takes to produce videos, that amount of video. And
Beautiful.
so yeah, that's what we do, and yeah, and right now I'm in Edinburgh for studying business and trying to improve things and continue doing things in order to help people. And yes.
Very good. I'm glad to hear that. And again, one more thing I might want to add is And actually, I did write it here because I didn't want to forget, and then of course I did. It's I think what I can suggest to those who are watching this video or will watch the video, because you said it's going to be available afterwards. Steve's greatest lesson, I think, it's his passion, his leadership, and much of his message is actually encapsulated in the 1997 Think Different campaign. The people who are crazy enough to think they're going to change the world are those who actually do. Apple builds tools for them. Honestly, I don't feel like an elitist or an elite, because people are telling me, oh yeah, Apple is, a giant cult. And I honestly, I used to get angry about it. Now I don't, because I think either you get it or not. Apple is basically there, and it's been there for quite a few decades, right? We're talking about over 40 now. Just to create tools for people that need them, especially artists, right? That don't have, hundreds of thousands of dollars of budgets to make a book or to make a movie or whatever, Um, and there's so much work behind, um, that I wish those people that focus on the cultish aspect of it would research a little bit more, understanding that no, people that work at Apple are simple people. They like to go around sometimes with no shoes, shorts, and a shirt, and writing formulas on the wall, And do they have amazing degrees? Some of them do. Some others didn't even finish high school. I think you know one of them, right? I think he was one of the co-founders. Um, so it's a mixed match of people that have a lot of creativity. Very often, they're not only geniuses because they come from a, computer science background or mathematic background, but they also love telling their stories. And I think it's important to keep that in mind, when you choose to create content. So and share your story. But anyhow, I think I spoke too much. I don't know if we're running out of time.
No worries. We're just perfectly on time, I would say.
Okay,
And
perfect. Well,
I
thanks
loved
so much
talking
for
with
having
you.
me.
It was
Yes,
really nice to meet you and actually
nice
see
to
you.
meet you too. Yes,
And your story is actually pretty impressive. It's the kind of American dream people look for, but at the same time, behind it, there is a lot of effort and a lot of things that you tried, and the persistency you had, I think, is the inspiration that we should take from your story, and the idea of trying to reach our objectives always, and trying to do the best we can in order to get there. I think is the best lesson that you could have taught us today.
thank you. Absolutely, and thank you for sharing your story too.
No worries, no, I'm quite used to it.
Okay.
Well, it's been really nice meeting you.
Yes.
I hope, I wish you a good night and a good evening, and also a good life and good things for your future. I'm sure that things will happen.
Yes, absolutely. Same to you. Best of luck on Inspiration Valley as well as all your projects. I'm looking forward to see some of your photos and some of your content on your website.
Absolutely.
And
Let's keep in touch. Absolutely.
yes, and happy holidays.
You too, you too, exactly. It's the last episode before January, so it's like before the holidays. Happy holidays to everybody. It's the first time I say this year, but Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and see you in January with the sixth episode of Inspiration Valley. Bye.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.